everyone, welcome back to our sew along of the Ymir Skull Wallet. This is day 3, so let's go ahead and get started. Today we're going to start by top stitching at 1/8 inch your slip pocket and card slot pieces. There should be 6 in total, okay? Just a little tip, I did write the names on the back, so I wouldn't have to keep referring to the pattern pieces, on which was which. So again, 6 pieces, and if you edge painted them, you'll know which is the top. Obviously that's the top of those, but the other ones that are rectangular. Otherwise, it doesn't matter which edge you top stitch. Okay. And I'm going to just like chain stitch these basically, one after the other. So it just goes faster, and then you just cut them apart at the end. I am using a 4 stitch length, but whatever your preference is. Okay, so you're gonna place your bottom card and your 2 middle cards face down and apply double-sided tape across the whole bottom on all 3 pieces. This will keep them in place while we're working with them and attaching them together. So you're going to go ahead and grab your 2 slip pockets. They are the same size, so go ahead and just pick one of them and put the other one on the side. And then we're going to attach our card slots to this piece. So grab your middle card slot piece and check the pattern for the measurement you use here, and you're going to use a ruler and place the card slot at this line. So undo your double-sided tape, and then I like to start at one edge up by the ruler and kind of walk it across to make sure it stays at the correct measurement. And make sure it's even both sides. It shouldn't overlap at all. If it overlaps a little bit, that's okay, as long as it's even. Then you're going to check the pattern again for the next measurement and mark. I mark again here with a white gel pen, but you can mark however, if you want to use tape or whatever. Again, the white gel pen just comes off with a baby wipe. So go ahead and mark that, and you're going to sew that line at a regular stitch length. And this is what it's going to look like. Then you're going to grab your next middle card slot and basically repeat the actions you just took for this one and attach it the same way. Now grab your bottom card slot piece, and you're going to line it up with the bottom of the card slot panel. go ahead and check the pattern for the seam allowance you're supposed to use here. Okay, so once that's sewn, I'm going to go ahead and use a baby wipe to get rid of my gel pen markings. You can do the same if you use a gel pen. It comes off super easy. Now you're going to flip the card slot panel over and find the middle of your card slot and draw a line. Okay, so go ahead and find the middle and mark a line, and that's where we're going to sew. Now you have two options. You can sew along the line you just marked, or you can sew one line on either side, which is what I'm going to do. Sewing one line on either side adds extra stability because these are potential high stress points pulling cards in and out, but completely your preference. And this is what it will look like if you stitched on either side of the line. This is how close I was so that cards will fit perfectly in there, okay? So again, high stress point potentially, so it just adds extra security, but totally your choice how you do that. Okay, so go ahead and set your card slots aside and grab your two remaining slip pockets. One of them is the smaller slip pocket. That one will go on top of the other slip pocket. I am going to use double-sided tape to keep them together. You could also clip them together. Your choice, because it's only two layers. If you want to freehand it, that's fine too. But I'm going to use double-sided tape and then check the pattern so you can see what the seam allowance here is, okay? Once you've done that, and again, I'm going to mark the seam allowance with a gel pen, and go ahead and sew that at a regular stitch length as well. Once you've sewn it, you can go ahead and wipe this off, and then set this piece aside, and we'll move on. Next, go ahead and grab the main liner and the exterior of your wallet that we finished yesterday. You're going to place the liner face down and the exterior on top, wrong sides together, and you're going to glue from one side to the other. Also, you are going to have the overhang on the skull, which is good. We'll clean that up after this is all sewn together, okay? So I'm using a glue stick. You can use a different kind of glue if you prefer. I would advise staying away from any sort of liquid glue, especially in the zipper area, as that you may accidentally glue your pocket together if it soaks up in there. The other option is you could use some double-sided tape. However you're choosing to attach it, whether glue or tape, carefully line the two pieces up together. I'm also using clips to hold this in place while I'm moving it around and rearranging, just to make sure it's in the correct position. That's the other thing I like about the glue stick, is it's repositionable. If you need to, you can just always apply more. But even if it dries, you can kind of pull it apart and move as needed. So I'm just lining up the corner here and going to clip it. and just go carefully around all the edges, making sure to line it up. It's okay if there's a little bit of an edge like poking past the other one, because you'll trim it later after you sew. Don't trim before you sew, wait. But yeah, you want as little overhang as possible. Here, careful, I flipped it over so that I wouldn't get the zipper pocket folded at all, and just clipped a little bit and then flip it back over. Once you have it where you want it, go ahead and flip it over, and you're going to grab your card slots, and we're going to attach it to the side opposite the skull, and just line up the corners and just kind of move your clips to hold it. And I'm going to add an extra one just so the pockets stay down while I sew later. Next, you're going to grab your slip pockets, and we're going to measure the correct distance away from the card slots. Check your pattern to see what that measurement is, and then place your card slots. If you want to use double-sided tape, you can. I did not here. I just clipped it in place, and then I'll double check the measurement as well after it's clipped in place, just to make sure. And notice how the bottom tilted there, so I wanted to double check as I clipped again for the other side. So once everything's in place to where you want it to be, make sure the magnets are lined up. You're going to take it over and sew all the way around. I sew top down so I can follow the shape of the skull, but make sure your snaps don't catch in your machine. Every machine's different, but mine always catch in where I put the thread in, always catches there. But again, I'm going to sew top side up so I can follow the shape of the skull, and I'm starting right here because it'll be the bottom of the wallet, so like less noticeable for start and stop of the thread. I am going to also leave my threads long here because I'm going to pull it to the middle layers between the two, basically between the two layers of the vinyl, and tie it off there. So instead of pulling it to the back, I'm going to pull it in between the two layers. I'll try and show you all later what I mean by that. But yeah, so leave your threads long when you start and stop. And be mindful when you sew over the card slots because they are going to want to pull away from you as you sew towards them. They may catch on your machine, okay? So just go slow and be mindful. Try and make sure you stay evenly around the edges, and keep an even seam allowance. And be super careful sewing around where the magnets are, because they won't get in your way with a narrow foot, but they may cause problems with other types of feet. So just be super careful when sewing around them that you're not hitting your needle in them. Okay, so here I'm going to show you how I pull the threads in between the two layers of vinyl. Because the threads are so close, I'm just going to trim them and put them in the same needle, so do both of them at once. And you're going to kind of angle it, and it's a little hard to see here, but between the two layers. So really sharp angle to go through. Instead of going through the back, go up through the middle. You see that? And then you're going to do the same for the back and then tie them off. And if you pull the strings carefully when knotting, the knot kind of disappears in between the two layers. Go ahead and trim any other loose threads you have hanging around, and then we're going to trim the skull so it matches up with the back. And you're going to do this however you're most comfortable, whether it's with your rotary cutter or your scissors, however you are most comfortable. Also, if any uneven edges like this, go ahead and trim that. All the straight edges, I use a rotary cutter, just because it gets a nice clean even edge. And then I also had my lining sticking out one piece, so I'll cut that off here. And then the skull, the bigger part of the skull, I do use my rotary blade for, but the smaller, and to get closer to the bigger part, I use my little sharp scissors. So totally your preference. Whatever you're most comfortable with. Okay, so at this point, this is where you would edge paint if you're going to. If you're not, congrats, you're done. And your beautiful wallets. I hope you all enjoy them. Go ahead and just take a minute and admire your work because you did this. You got this far. And that's a wrap of day 3. Thank you everyone for being here with us on another fabulous sew-along. I'm so excited to see all of your beautiful wallets. Join us later this week where we go over how to make your own custom shaped flap, just in case you want other options besides the skull shape. Thank you again, everyone. Bye.